Putin's war on Ukraine came as a wake-up call for many countries. People were astonished to see Russian forces moving into Ukraine to take control with tanks and bullets. This step by Russia has demonstrated the need for every country to bolster its defenses in the event of an invasion. The conflict has caused both temporary and long-lasting effects on nations around the world. Many Ukrainians have lost their homes and have become refugees. Russians are facing bans and sanctions imposed on them by international bodies. Many countries are experiencing hardships due to fuel price hikes, and the cost of living has gone up. Based on this indication and others, it is safe to say that a majority of people want this war to end. To be able to predict the outcome of the ongoing conflict, we must understand the reason behind Putin's declaration of war. The major purpose of Vladimir Putin is to conquer Ukraine and overthrow its government. He is also not in favor of Ukraine's wish to join NATO. Also, Putin asserts that Ukraine is conducting genocide against Russian speakers in eastern Ukraine, but there is no proof to support his assertion. At the beginning of the siege, the Russian military was focused on capturing Kyiv. However, their efforts were met with strong resistance from the Ukrainians. Unfortunately for Putin, he was unable to conquer Kyiv, Ukraine's capital, and has now shifted his attention to the country's east and south. Everyone is hoping the conflict ends in the best possible way. This way will include some sought peaceful negotiations and compromise by both countries. The Ukrainian president may see that sovereignty may come at the cost of innocent lives and greatly deplete the country's resources. Besides, what is the use of being an independent state if the state has been utterly destroyed? According to the United Nations, 4.9 million people have fled Ukraine, most into neighboring countries, marking this the fastest-growing refugee crisis since World War II, and more is expected to follow. In an attempt to stop the devastating attacks, the Ukrainian government may be willing to give in to some of Putin's requests in exchange for a ceasefire. If Ukrainian officials decide to wave the white flag, the Russian government might send its troops back home. The Russian government will probably cut all ties Ukraine has with NATO. President Zelensky's leadership role will be diminished, and he may flee to western Ukraine or even overseas for fear of his life. With Ukraine under Putin's control, other countries may steer clear of Russian territory. International corporations may be hesitant to expand their operations into Ukraine. More Ukrainians are likely to leave the country for neighboring countries. Before the beginning of the conflict, Vyacheslav Nikhanov said in Parliament that he had no doubts about the victory of Russia over Ukraine. This year, active Russian troops were about 1.3 million, as compared to Ukrainian troops, which were just 500,000. Ukrainian weapons and ammunition were also limited in numbers. From a logistical standpoint, Ukraine couldn't stand a chance against Russia. The situation looked like an easy win for Russia. However, the Ukrainian military has proven to be formidable. With their few resources, plus contributions from other countries, the Ukrainian army defended Kyiv from the Russian troops. According to recent reports, both sides have been relaxing their positions. On March 15th, Zelensky stated that he would not push for NATO membership, but that the West must provide Ukraine with robust security guarantees. If a resolution occurs and an arrangement is achieved, there is no guarantee that all parties will follow through on the decisions made. Ukraine has received support from the international community in a variety of ways. In an attempt to urge Russia to halt the fight, many penalties and limitations have been imposed. The United Kingdom, the United States, and the European Union have implemented flight restrictions, import and export bans, and a total boycott of Russian oil. One of Russia's most lucrative exports is imminent. According to President Putin's former main economic advisor, a serious embargo on Russian energy by Western countries may put an end to the conflict in Ukraine. Coca-Cola, L'Oreal, McDonald's, and Starbucks have all said that they will cease operations in Russia in protest of Putin's war. In an instance where all these sanctions are causing enough economic damage to Russia, Putin might realize that he is incurring so much loss in his quest to control Ukraine's decisions. This scenario could possibly lead to a change of heart by the Russian leader. Putin may slowly pull back all his troops from Ukraine and may be willing to negotiate with President Zelensky. Peaceful interactions may be held between member states, and Russia leaves Ukraine as a sovereign state. The possibility of Russia pulling back its military will be far-fetched. Some experts have argued that Russia may not back down from this war until all the conditions have been met. Putin went further to slam the entire country as an illegitimate anti-Russia that could no longer be tolerated, in a series of lengthy anti-Ukrainian diatribes delivered on the eve of the current war. So far, NATO has limited its interference in the Ukrainian conflict. However, this could change if human casualties caused by the war are too devastating to ignore. The body could decide to get more involved if Putin decides to strike one of its member states. Russia already has attacked targets close to the Polish border. It's also possible that Putin, in his now apparently compulsive desire to restore the Russian Empire's previous splendor, may look beyond Ukraine. President Putin has made it obvious, according to Antony Blinken, that this is about the total subordination of Ukraine to Russia. It's about resurrecting the Russian Empire, or failing that, establishing a zone of influence, or failing that, ensuring the entire neutrality of Russia's neighbors. In response to any attacks on NATO member nations, it might probably engage in a full-blown war with Russia. This could lead to instability and economic hardships for the entire EU. China, a well-known ally of Russia, has chosen to remain silent. According to Amy Kin, a writer for the New York Times, China and Russia both believe the U.S. is aiming to cripple their country. Both countries want the United States' power to wane. U.S. officials said that Russia had called China for military and economic support. The U.S. has, however, warned China not to get involved or they might face certain repercussions. Regardless of the country that wins or loses, the fact remains that both countries and even people in other nations will be suffering the effects of the war for a long time.